It seems that every year, a different investment theme bubbles to the surface. This year, it's artificial intelligence. Last year, it was the metaverse. Before that, it was fracking in oil, gold, Bitcoin. Work your way back through history. Every now and again, a different idea catches investors' attention because of the performance of the underlying stocks. I'm Barry Ritholtz, and on today's edition of At the Money, we're going to discuss how to engage with thematic investing. To help us unpack all of this and what it means for your portfolio, let's bring in Jan van Eck. He is the CEO of Eck Funds, which manages about $100 billion in client assets. So let's start out with the basics. What is thematic investing?
I would say it's really a specialized part of the market, right? It could be a group of stocks. It could be a group of, it could be a country. It could be an industry, a very, very focused part of the market.
So let me give you a great example of thematic investing. Back in 1968, your dad began one of the very first gold funds in the United States. Right before that 1970s boom. Tell us a little bit about gold as a thematic investment.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we call ourselves macro investors because we like to look outside of the context of the financial markets, look at politics, economics, and technology and say, okay, what's the opportunity that's going to come along that might not be priced in or the risk? So, yes, the emblematic thing for our firm was the starting of a gold fund, even though gold had been fixed against the dollar for the entirety of U.S. history.
You were guaranteed until the decoupling that your return was going to be exactly zero.
Exactly zero. Right. No upside.
So your father obviously was anticipating Nixon eventually going off the gold standard and severing that fixed rate for gold.
Just like maybe spending today, back then spending on social programs, the war, the Vietnam War.
You had the war on poverty, the great program under Johnson, and then Vietnam spending was pretty substantial.
Yeah, exactly. And so the idea is, all right, what's, again, a multi-year theme, right? It's very hard to pick quarter to quarter.
Right.
That is in there if you look at the bigger world, but it's not priced into the financial markets. And he said, listen, in history, gold has been the hedge. It's been the way to play inflation. So if I'm right, and you never know what the future is, but you pick your scenarios and that's the way to go. And the beauty of that, that it's hard to forget. But in the 70s, gold companies went up like Bitcoin does today because the costs of production didn't go up in the 70s for oil, metals, and gold. So that was the beauty. And those stocks were like options.
So the theme in the 70s was the decoupling, going off the gold standard, and all this excess spending for gold. What is the theme in the 2020s for gold?
Well, I think it's a question of are we returned to irresponsible government policies? Mm-hmm. And there's also another overlay, Barry, which is it was really big for the United States to seize Russian reserves after their invasion of Ukraine, because the reaction has been other countries are worried that the United States does the same thing. So they've been buying gold in their foreign central banks at a rate that you really haven't seen for decades. So there's this.
I know China has been a huge buyer of gold recently.
It's across the table.
Is China anticipating the U.S. seizing their assets? That would be an act of war.
Yeah, but I mean, if they invade Taiwan.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, they've stopped buying government bonds and they've been increased. They haven't been sort of the biggest buyers, but.
Who has been?
You have countries, India has been a consistent buyer, a lot of central banks like Eastern European banks. Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit of a mishmash. But the point is, your question, is gold sort of something that you want to have as a thematic investment today? I would say absolutely yes, because of the U.S. government spending at 7% of GDP. If we inflate our way out of it, right, if we buy all that debt, then people are not going to like the dollar and gold's going to go up.
Got it. You mentioned Bitcoin. Let's talk about cryptocurrencies and DeFi as a theme with Bitcoin at $50,000, $60,000. How much upside is in Bitcoin, and what other aspects of crypto are or are not appealing?
Let's focus on Bitcoin. Like I said before, there's two technology trends of our lifetime, right? The internet and AI. Internet finally came up with an asset, right? It didn't have an asset. It didn't have its own gold. So I just look at Bitcoin as its own gold for the
internet gold.
It's internet gold. A question is something else going to leapfrog Bitcoin's popularity? I mean, it's extremely unlikely. 300 million people own it. About close to 1 million people use the Bitcoin network every month. So I just don't see that happening. So if that's the case, I say, listen, in the long term, Bitcoin's going to be half the value of gold. I don't know. Young people like it.
Right.
They buy it rather than gold. If you look at activity in developed markets, it's Bitcoin more than gold. Southeast Asia is more gold. So I just say, look, we're in the middle of a multi-year trend where this thing, at some point, Bitcoin's going to be boring. I want people to really understand that in 5 years, Bitcoin's going to be boring. It will have done its thing. It will have emerged as an alternative. It's kind of like silver today. It's an accompaniment to gold.
There are literally thousands of other coins, to quote Business Week, rhymes with Bitcoins. Of all the rest of the coins out there, the only one that seemed to have had any real staying power is Ethereum. How do you look at ETH relative to Bitcoin? Is that a 1-2? Are those the two winners? Or what else should we be thinking about in the crypto space?
Yeah, I mean, I separate Bitcoin, as I said. The rest of this stuff is software investing. I think it's mystifying to call it crypto and all this other stuff. It's software. And then the question is any of this software, which is open source, so you and I could copy it instantly, does any of it have any value? Are people paying to use this software? If you ask that question, there's only about 30 to 50 software protocols where people are actually paying. It's like you're saying, it's an digital assets exchange, or it's a social network, or a bunch of different things. For none of them is the usage above the $10 million person number. So it's a big option as to whether any of that stuff will be of value. I will fully grant that.
It's a solution in search of a problem, but the upside is if a problem is identified that crypto solves, it's potentially a multi-trillion-dollar sector of the economy.
And I have two things. Number one, last year was super important because the costs of using blockchains became predictable. Like, how the Bitcoin became more and less expensive, gas fees on Ethereum. That's like the worst thing. That's like filling up your car. It costs $50 a week, and then you have to pay $600. You're like, I'm never going to use that. No real business is going to use that.
Right.
That was fixed in 2023. So you either use
due to the last coin being mined, or the halving, or something else entirely.
It's either Solana or Avalanche, which are fixed in terms of very low fees. Or what they call layer 2s. Don't worry about the technology, but the point is this database software solution now became price predictable. Then the second point I would make to investors that are maybe skeptical, there's something called stable coins, which, these are tokens that track the value of the dollar. The velocity of trading of stable coins last year was $10 trillion, the same as the Visa network.
Wow.
Now, that's a curiosity, but I ask you to think, what if that goes up 5x, right? What if people constantly now on your phone start using stable coins as opposed to dollars? It's potential. It may not matter to most people, but I'm just saying if you follow that space, that is a reasonable scenario for 24 and 25.
And I know a number of people have said, why are you paying fees to MasterCard or Visa? This will eventually. And my answer is because if it gets stolen, they cover me for everything over $50. I don't have to worry about my password being hacked to my Bitcoin. So there's still some growing pains on the crypto side, but eventually disintermediating the big banks and the big financial players, that's the potential upside for crypto and DeFi.
100%. A multi-year thematic, if you will, kind of development.
So to sum up, look to add themes that are complementary to your core portfolio. You can consider AI or India or gold or even Bitcoin as an add-on to your long-term investment. I'm Barry Ritholtz. You've been listening to Bloomberg's At the Money.